Lost Signals present
A joke on the children.
a Bon Mott's Halloween series
What's up, ninjas?
celebrating
Left turn.
horror
Sequels.
with in-depth analysis,
Do I look like someone who cares what God thinks?
adult content,
It's okay, he just wanted his machete back!
adult language,
Well, that's just what we call pillow talk, baby.
and spoilers.
If he dies, I'll be a murderer.
Join us.
Gotta love these parallel universes.
Good evening, and welcome to MOTS-O-Ween. My name is Chris Morgan. I'm here with Stephen Ormosi,
Hello.
Jonathan Ian Manzer,
Happy Halloween in August.
and Scott Thurlow. And tonight, we watched the 1994 classic that was released in 1997.
Classic.
The movie that both Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey filed, I don't know if they're going to file a lawsuit or if it was their agent's going to file a lawsuit to get this film from being released. Texas
Too late.
Chainsaw,
I've seen it.
The Next Generation. So, at least one of them went on to have a good career. I don't know. So, anybody want to give me a funny log line?
Well,
Yes.
I came up with, as we were watching it, we'll discuss this, I suppose, but I came up with, I'd chainsaw me for something that happens in this film, bizarrely, which is basically everything, but this thing specifically. And before we go on, I think we should mention that this year's Halloween theme is left turn sequels.
Yeah.
And like known franchises or like a number of like movies.
Yeah, this is
Like established ones that then took like an odd, weird, like out of nowhere direction. So
And they certainly did with this one.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes, they did.
this one definitely did that. So anyway, go on.
So anyway, does anybody want to give a quick synopsis, or should we just go on to?
I think we just go right into that.
All right, Ian, why don't you tell us how this movie begins, proceeds, and ends?
Well, first, we've already kind of discussed it. This is a weird movie. It's Alex Jones' fever dream. Weird. Which we'll get into why specifically. But it starts off as a combination between a low-grade horror movie and almost a parody of one.
Somewhat, yes.
And then it turns into a Texas Chainsaw Massacre story, except replacing Leatherface with a cross-dressing Leatherface. The kind of... Yeah, they have Matthew McConaughey as a unhinged tow
Truck
driver.
With the hinge in his leg.
Yeah, and like all the family
Ironically.
members are even more peculiar than the standard fare. And a bunch of prom students get lost for some reason on a road.
And horror happens.
Horror ensues. And Renee Zellweger ends up being the last girl. And then all of a sudden, the Illuminati or some type of group
It's a very
shows up.
thin veiled reference to the Illuminati, yes.
who are like Cabin Fever, but done poorly.
Cabin in the Woods, I
Or
think
Cabin
you
in the
mean.
Woods, sorry, yes. Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
Their entire premise is they scare people for some reason. This movie
To wake them up to their lives. Yeah, that's very unclear on their motives here.
This movie does not play by the rules it establishes throughout this, throughout the entire thing.
If you don't establish any rules, you don't have to fucking play by any rules. It doesn't even do that.
Say, did they establish rules at any time?
That's kind of my point.
It seemed like they just decided to smash 3 movies into one.
I don't know what happened.
It's almost
with
as
that.
if they throw at a dartboard filled with concepts, hit one, because like the Illuminati thing, which should be a big reveal, doesn't go anywhere. It's
just sort of there.
I actually like the way that brought into it, because it was kind of like a casual thing, like, hi.
Yeah, I guess, but like it's so, I don't know, man. Go on.
That's cool. A casual Illuminati presence is fine. But I mean, if it has a meaning behind
you don't hear that
it,
every day. Go on.
But it means nothing in this.
Yeah, it has no relevance whatsoever.
I can't remember if it was. It may have been one somewhere. I know it was definitely in the second one. I'm not sure if it was in the first two. Was the family? There's a line from the second one. I remember, like, they live on fear. They live on fear. Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing is, that's the catch with it. Texas Chainsaw movies are like Godzilla movies. You only get like about 10 minutes of the chainsaw.
Sure.
No, you only get, I mean, it's true. You get like about 10 minutes of like the reason you're there, because the rest of it's like meat hooks and bashing people over the head.
But generally it's tension, which takes the place of the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
This has no tension. Here, I'm pretty sure it doesn't know whether it wants to be a parody, a campy version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or a legitimate horror movie. And it seems to just schizophrenically swap between
all of them. Yeah, you're right. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
This may be the Leonard Part 6 of horror movies.
No, it's not quite that. But yeah, like
Leonard Part 6 is more coherent.
Yeah. This movie doesn't make a lick of sense whatsoever, but somehow it's like compelling, even like in light of that.
I just want to get this out there right away. This is my pick.
Yeah.
I just say, narratively, this movie makes no sense.
Agreed.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not a complex plot.
No.
And they manage to overly complicate it and say nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Make it even less effective. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't have much to say because that's pretty much like my assessment of it. But oddly, I was entertained, so maybe that goes to later questions. So if we're doing intro body conclusion, I might give the intro a 1 because it was sort of like standard, like, oh, it's going to be a teen slasher, within the Texas Chainsaw Massacre universe. But then it's not. Then it's a comedy. But it was still like, I don't know.
All right, the beginning is definitely getting a 1. I agree with you.
That's pretty much
the middle is definitely getting a 0. And like, if we were give you half a point, like the ending started off boring but got good. So I'm really not sure.
It got bizarre.
Here's the thing is, I have no. This movie is entertaining. I enjoy it. I've seen it before.
Yeah.
This is maybe perhaps my 3rd time seeing it in my life. It's entertaining, but it doesn't make a lick of sense. And to the point of the introduction, I think that one of the first scenes is the girl who can survive anything really. What's the
how's that, Heather?
Heather, yeah, is looking for her boyfriend Barry, and there's like one of the teachers just offhandedly insults Heather, and she has her friend there who doesn't appear for any other part of the movie, just kind of writhing in the hallway.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre exchange for sure. That's true.
It's from the very beginning. It loses the plot, and
again, you can't lose a plot if you had none to begin with.
I'm giving it actually a very strong 0 for intro body and conclusion.
I have to agree with you. Like none of those things made any sense as far as the plot goes, and like there were enjoyable parts of this movie. There were actually a good amount of enjoyable parts of this movie, but they didn't matter at all in terms of anything else in the
narrative.
movie.
Yes, sure.
And they didn't really. There was no reason for them. And if we're talking about intro body conclusion, how a story hangs together, there's just no point to this movie. And I'm tempted to like go back and like name some of the things that happened.
Don't worry about it.
But, well, I was gonna say, why bother?
But like, it's just so ridiculous. If you've seen the movie already, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, well, we'll talk about recommendations later. But
just one last part of my book. One of the greatest sins that this movie has is it starts off with a very small cast to begin with. Characters die in this, I think, because
maybe
they get hit in the head. Are seen being carried off alive,
Barry.
And then Barry is actually the example for that. And you never see what happens to him. For all I know, he's unconscious in a meat storage unit as the credits roll. Like, I don't know what happened to him. And there's 4 people.
But do you care?
The thing is, like, I care because they introduced. He's probably had the most personality on the screen, like for the protagonists, and I don't know what happened to him, so it's infuriating.
Again, I totally see what you mean. So here's how I'm going to come down and think with my score. I'm going to give it a 1 overall, but because we've now conglomerated the first intro body conclusion, like there's parts of each of which that make just enough narrative sense, but by and large it does not. Like, do not get me wrong here. It certainly does not. But I'm going to give it just enough credit to give it a 1.
Yeah, 0.5 rounded up.
Yeah, exactly. like a 0.345 each or whatever, which equals a 1.
I'll be the opposite of that. This is a 1.5 rounded down to 1.
Okay.
All right, fair enough.
I'm going to give it a 1.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with a 0.
It's really hard to explain this movie, but we'll try our best.
It's
of the nature of the
it's
fucking
very
movie.
easy to explain this movie. Family tortures people in a bunch of random scenes that, as you said earlier, Ian, seemed like they were just thrown at, like darts thrown at a dartboard into like, what? How do we torture them next? All right, let's do that one.
I suppose. I see what you mean, but anyway, that's my score for this.
Let's run somebody over with a fucking truck. Next, we'll light someone on fire. Put somebody up on a meat hook.
Horror happens.
Just some
like
of
I
the
said.
wonderful things that happen in this movie for no goddamn reason.
But that's everything in this movie. Anyway.
Yeah.
Scott,
Yes.
to paraphrase Steve-O, themes, were there any?
You guys tell me. I say no. Outright. Like I said, and like you guys just said as well, yeah. When they write this movie, so then what? Then horror happens. Okay?
But the thing is, I'm going to say, I would have said horror, but it didn't know if it wanted to be horror or
Yeah,
comedy,
like,
so...
weird stuff happens, some of which might be classified as horror, some of which might not be. Your mileage
Is
may
this
vary.
like a poor man's David... No, even David
No,
Lynch would have had
not
it.
at all.
It's absolutely not David
No, that's why I'm saying poor man's, because they missed the point.
Even a poor man's David Lynch thing would make more sense in this movie.
Yeah, I was thinking
or less sense, but for a good reason.
Yeah.
Right?
At least it would have a point and possibly a theme, which this movie had neither of. So, I'm outright going to give it a 0 for themes unless you guys come up with something. Like, yes, as you said, it was entertaining. Like, the Illuminati is scaring people into some kind of awakening. I don't fucking know. Like,
But the thing is, what's funny about this, thinking back on it, if they really wanted to make a horror movie, they could have made a really kind of bizarre, scary...
It could have been like an actual tension-filled,
yeah,
creepy movie.
And the
But in fact, there was
Illuminati
zero
showing
tension.
up at the end would have just been that much creepier. Like, there's a network of these people out there.
Anyway,
Still didn't
All
matter.
right,
There's
the
no
movie
reason
didn't
for
do
them
that,
to
so I'm
show
giving
up.
a 0.
all I'm saying is, like, yeah, what are they saying in this movie? I have no goddamn clue, if anything at all.
See, I think that this movie attempted to say something.
Okay.
So, just like W.E. Slaughter would randomly quote
Famous
sayings,
yes.
I feel like, but without having a grander
Yeah,
meaning behind
like, they
them.
know the quotes, but, like, in service to what?
Exactly. And I don't know, I just... In a way, I feel like they were trying to accomplish something, and they didn't at all accomplish what they set out to do. And whatever theme that they had was lost to the kind of...
And, like, the background noise of
to the muddledness of the filmmaking.
Well said. I 100% agree.
I'm not sure that there was ever a theme that was
To begin with? No, go ahead.
like that was trying to be pushed or made. Other than, of course, that the Illuminati rules the world and runs everything.
It's obvious.
Especially horror. But I just don't see them trying to make any greater point with this movie.
If it were a smarter comedy, it could actually be like they could have gone an Archer route. See, I'm sitting here thinking about ways to improve it, and it was none of those things. So
Maybe, yeah, if it was that, but it was not.
but it wasn't.
We're not rewriting the movie here. We're just talking about what was on the screen.
I'm not gonna write a
Perhaps
fucking
they're
movie for
trying
you.
to redeem the crazy redneck in the woods who stocks guns because he thinks that...
You think that was a redemption for the crazy redneck in the woods?
This proves them right. That like,
So let me ask you guys this: do you think that the gas station attendant was somebody that would have saved them?
I
That
have
was
no
brought up for
idea.
no reason, and then just completely left out
That's a
for the
bad
rest of
idea.
the movie.
How about the guys at Bud's, man?
Oh, man, dude, first of all, Bud's is a rocking place. I want to fucking go there.
They have pizza, burgers,
They have everything
ice.
at this place. Yeah.
Coffee.
It's got a drive-through, coffee.
Yeah.
You could a drive-through pizza place, which we're in New Jersey, which is the like.
Actually, you said that before, but there is a drive-through Pizza Hut in Edison.
Sure.
It's not pizza.
I was gonna say Pizza Hut.
I'm sure
is not-
Bud's isn't that great either.
If it is,
You sold
Like
out.
cinnamon all
if
goddamn
they make
Texas
it-
doesn't make good pizza, all right?
anyways.
They took those pizza boxes, put them upside,
Tip them sideways, and then handed to
and they were still perfect when she took them out. That's some skill.
It's a hell of a place.
Yeah, that sounds like Pizza Hut pizza.
So I'm gonna give Bud's a 1, but themes a 0.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 0 on themes as well.
Yep, same here.
Okay, well then it's on to me with antagonist, and I'm gonna say the antagonist for everybody in this film was stupidity. I mean, like, seriously, everybody was a fucking idiot. Like, the antagonists weren't scary because they were such idiots. I mean, they could have been if this were actually.
I think the movie sometimes at points wanted you to think that. Sure.
I mean,
maybe until they devolved into slapstick.
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey could have been
Three Stooges.
Matthew McConaughey could have been really scary.
He was somewhat menacing early on, like his very first scene when he shows up with the tow truck. I will say
what he
that.
could have been here. He was in what was that movie with Bill Paxton and okay,
I don't know.
He actually played creepy in another movie after this one.
Sure.
So
I think his leg was not only the biggest weakness in the film, but also
his antagonist.
As antagonist.
That's amazing.
It made him a joke, and that totally took away any threat.
Yes.
And it was made that was made into a joke as well. It wasn't like played straight at all.
Sure.
Okay, but is that like an antagonist within the film, or is that an antagonist objectively speaking about the movie?
To the antagonist?
Is
it an antagonist to the intent of the movie?
It was an antagonist to Matthew McConaughey's character.
Who was supposed to be
His
the
name
antagonist
Vilmer?
himself. Vilmer, yes, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a good, like, is McConaughey a good antagonist? Like,
is he effective? Like, I guess he does terrorize people.
Does the whole family count as antagonists?
Yeah, Slaughter family, maybe, but
I will say it's the entire family because obviously Leatherface is the face
of the franchise,
the franchise. And it handles Leatherface fairly well in how the chase scenes in there.
It handles Leatherface really strangely and interestingly. I don't know why they went with the Leatherface is a cross-dresser in this movie
because everyone needed a quirk.
I guess that's what it was. They were like, Leatherface's quirk of having a human face on his face isn't enough of a quirk, so we need to make him a cross-dresser.
Well, yeah. Everyone's too familiar with it. But it's like you guys said, they're throwing ideas like, okay, boom, cross-dresser, put it in the movie.
Actually, what's interesting, the most effective part of the antagonist for me was the relationship between Vilmer and his wife-girlfriend. And they're really fucked up.
Incredibly abusive
relationship. It was like sadomasochistic relationship.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But it was sort of there.
It was, but it actually made it should have been handled better. A lot of things in this should have. But I think if anything, this was kind of the most gripping element of the depravity of this family. They had a bathroom with human flesh on the walls, but the actual human emotion between the two, between Matthew McConaughey and the girlfriend character, I think was fairly effective. So I might actually give this a 1.
I don't know. This one's tough for me. Like, you guys made good points on either side, but did I think it was effective? Like, I was amused by the antagonist, I suppose, or at least by what the film wanted us to think were the antagonists. Sure, but I don't know, dude. Here, I'll decide last. You guys go ahead.
I enjoyed W.E.'s random quoting of things as basically his only dialogue.
Yeah, that was his quirk.
I thought that was kind of funny.
But I wouldn't count him as an antagonist.
Well, if we count the whole family,
then we are. If not, then that's
which I kind of do. I lump the whole Slaughter family there.
All
sure.
right.
But and McConaughey hammed it up like crazy in this movie, which was sometimes effective, somewhat, in at least in terms of making him kind of scary, I guess. But and you're right, that interaction that he had with his girlfriend,
I think Darla was her name.
Darla, was interesting, albeit super fucking abusive and weird as hell. But that was kind of what made them the focus of attention. I don't know if I'm gonna give it a 1 or not, though.
Me neither. See, it's tough, right? It's weird to think this is a weird one.
So it's such a weird movie in that I was drawn to it. I wasn't really bored at any point watching this movie, but it's just such a bad movie. That's probably why, right? It's one of those movies that's so bad it's good, and the flaws in it are really obvious and just slap you in the face every chance they get. But
as characters are literally slapping each other in the face.
I don't know.
But I see what you mean,
I'm closer
dude.
to a 0 on this than a 1. What do you think, Chris?
Ian made a very good point. and meta commentary on it's a good point. And I don't know if that's sorry, I don't mean to be patting myself on the back, but no, but I mean the thing is stupidity, and you brought up two more, the leg and the relationship between Matthew McConaughey and
Massacre. McCaskey.
Slaughter is the best,
Anyway.
McConaughey. Shit.
And then the
We'll figure it out
relationship
later.
between him and Dana?
Darla. I
Darla,
think.
that's it.
Doesn't
Darla.
really matter.
No, Starlight.
Ah, damn, that's kind of hard, because...
Well, may I bring up another one?
Sure.
The entire family taking out their interactions with their victims and just looking at them as isolated family unit. You have W.E. who constantly abuses Leatherface. You have Leatherface who is really... I actually felt a lot of sympathy
So did I.
throughout this because they're like it would be crying out, and when when Darla and Vilmer or whatever were arguing, it would be like kind of cringing in the background, afraid of things.
Sure.
And just watching it was actually it felt to me as weird and as unbelievable as most of this movie is. The abusive dynamic of that family was very believable. With the idea of when Matthew McConaughey was gone, W.E. attempted to assert his authority. Darla would bring him down, and the kind of abusive relationship between them would start. But she derived her power from Matthew McConaughey. It's a very interesting dynamic there, and I thought, again, that was the best part of this movie. I can't believe I'm defending that.
It certainly was one of the most entertaining parts.
I think you changed my mind.
You might have got me on that.
Because
too.
the funny thing is, compared to the other ones, they never really abuse Leatherface because he is kind of like a juvenile, because he cries a lot. If a woman screams, he screams. But they always kind of treat him like the little kid. And in this one's the first time you really see a cycle abuse to him. That's all right. That in itself, I'm going to give it a 1.
Yeah, no, good job.
Good job. Nice work, Ian. It was 3.
I'm going to give it a 1.
I had 3 points and still was going to give it a 0. That last one locked it in.
Yeah, very well done.
All right.
And Steve-O, do we have a protagonist in this film?
Well, I guess it's
we have one.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Renee Zellweger's character. And she... I'm assuming it's the direction in this movie, but she has some of the weirdest, switches from, pure terror to, just abject boredom. that make no sense at all. That's just one of the first things that I noticed in this. She's not a very interesting character. It's not like anybody really has an arc in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. At least she doesn't, unless you go ahead.
But
not to me.
I don't know. She does at one point find her voice, I guess, and tell everybody to shut up and sit down because she's leaving. But that stops rather quickly.
It's quickly diffused.
And I don't know. I wasn't impressed with the protagonist, her as the protagonist, or the writing in general for her. So I'm probably going to give this a 0. But
I agree. But I see what they were attempting to do with her. In a way, and when she gets her voice is when she realizes the dysfunction of her would-be killers. And she starts to gather her voice. I just think it was handled poorly.
Well, and the thing with that is, the problem is that,
that's
like Scott said, it was diffused, and then all of her agency at the end of the movie was taken away anyway.
That would have been such an amazing thing if they actually pulled that off.
It would have been.
That would have been fucking... I'm sitting here going, wow, you're pulling out some...
Many things about this movie would have been good if they were better.
I found her tedious. I mean, I liked it when she found her voice, but otherwise I found her really tedious.
All right, here's how I come down. She found her voice too little too late, and it meant nothing. She did. She had somewhat...
too short a time.
Yeah, exactly. She had somewhat of an arc, but you're right, Steve. There was some, bizarre juxtapositions between her supposedly being, crying, threatened, tortured, and then her just sitting there watching all this bizarreness go on,
and then just
as if it were
turning blank faced.
Exactly, as if she were watching a TV or something.
Lines of dialogue.
It's really weird. So I think it's more weak than it is strong, even though I don't think it's like as one-dimensional or as flat as we thought it might have been like outright. But I'm still going to come down probably with a 0.
One of my big problems is that Renee Zellweger, and not necessarily her, but the way this character is written, she was overshadowed in the very beginning by both Heather and Barry.
Yep.
So I grew more attached to Heather and Barry. They're
what about Barry, dude?
They're not very good people, but I understood their motivations.
Sure.
And I didn't understand Renee Zellweger's motivations until her sole motivation became to survive the shit. And so she got her one dimension from the situation, but before she had...
exactly. So I'm coming down with a solid 0 probably. Maybe it's off even me, but it's got to be a 0.
I'm going to give it a solid 0.
Yeah.
And Mr. Manzer, supplemental characters.
Well, this is interesting because now that we have...
I'm sorry.
Supporting? Or secondary?
Secondary people. The other people that were not anybody we've mentioned so far. Or
the ones that
maybe
supplemented?
They supplement the protagonist and antagonist. Anyway.
Who are the people that broke up the tedium of the protagonist?
Well, this is very interesting because initially I was going to say the entire family, but we included those in antagonists.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say my favorite one was Uncle Grandpa.
Nice. Uncle Dead Alive Grandpa.
Who just
Schrodinger's grandpa
somehow appeared alive at a dinner table where I assumed he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I saw that. That's one of the...
That was the most shocking thing that this film had. At least one of the... Yeah.
Stuck in my head. Poor Barry. You're an asshole, but I don't know what happened to you. Heather, by God, girl, you put up a valiant effort to survive. You had more things happen to you. The only person I can think in horror who rivals the amount of shit she went through is the guy from the remake of Evil Dead.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And then there was Stoner guy or whatever who got run over early on.
He was the first victim of Sean.
But beyond that, I think that's all the supporting.
I think I have one. Mr. Illuminati.
Without question.
He was only briefly there. Mr. What's his name? Chris, you know his name.
Rothman,
yeah.
Mr. Rothman. He was, again, a quirky, bizarre, at first you don't notice it, and then, he's wearing a suit, right? And then his shirt's off, and he has, weird, scarred, etchings and, triple piercings, in his mid-range.
Giant rings on his stomach.
It's bizarre as hell. And he shows up and basically is like, yep, Illuminati's real, and we do this shit. Anyway, see ya. It's really weird, but I think that guy did a good job for the brief life he had. And sure, Barry was sort of the annoying asshole jockish character. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Forgot one.
Family in a Winnebago.
Yes. Elderly couple in a Winnebago, that is.
Elderly couple.
Shadow of man in gas station.
But they put up... They try to save Renee Zellweger.
Not at first.
Not at first. They say keep driving.
Oh, no, a monster's chasing her. Slow down.
A monster's chasing her with a chainsaw. Open the door.
No good deed goes unpunished is what we call that one.
So, there weren't very many, but they were amusing, and I was entertained by them. I think they did add something else to the film at large and the whatever semblance of plot and story there was. So
here's what I'll say.
Good.
Whereas you cannot make a protagonist or an antagonist out of quirky shit that you thought of the night before.
You can do that.
You
with
wrote it.
Yeah.
With supporting characters,
Sure.
it works kind of well,
Yeah.
especially in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like the characters for that.
You are right about that, so I will give it a 1. I don't really much more to add.
I know. I agree with all of you, and if we did not put Darla in with the family, I would have counted her. But I'm going to say the guy at the window at Bud's.
Oh yeah, Mr. Buds. Yeah.
Where are the cops? The cops at Bud's.
True, yeah.
Or the little leaguers who go and look in the back of the trunk when Renee Zellweger's in there in a plastic bag.
They know better than to ask questions.
Yeah. Oh my God!
Yeah, you're right. All the. Go ahead, sorry.
Buds gets a 1 automatically.
Buds.
Yeah,
Buds.
I did mention that earlier, so we'll count Buzz as a secondary character to itself.
Why not?
And definitely do that. Yeah, they like I said, all these characters add character to the little weird universe that they've built. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'll give them credit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's ones all around, right?
I believe so. Sounds like it.
Scott, we're to you with dialogue.
All right. So this was another interesting one, a funny one to both sort of talk about and talk over as we were watching the film. I was unsure to think at first, and initially I was going to lean towards a bit of a 0, like first impressions upon watching this film, and I had never seen this version of Texas Chainsaw, or this iteration anyway, so I didn't know what to expect. Early on, became clear enough that it seemed like they were going through, yes, a parody, like an iteration / satire of your teenage slasher movie in the Texas
and
Chainsaw.
teenage sex comedy.
Yeah, and all that shit. So at the end of the day,
every slasher movie. Anyway?
Yes, well, yeah, it was entertaining, and normally, I would probably say I enjoyed W.E. just almost 80% or more of his dialogue is him giving a quote and then telling you who that quote was from,
you who the quote was.
which is shit that I enjoy.
Aside from saying
Niccolo
shotgun, I
Machiavelli.
think that's all he did.
Yeah, that was his quirk, and so I've enjoyed that. And you're right, it was so bizarre and sometimes stilted, but sometimes not. But then both at once somehow. McConaughey, you're right, was hamming the hell out of it. He was basically Charlton Heston horror. It was weird as shit. But it was so entertaining, and while not good, it somehow still fit within the weird, again, bizarre boundaries of this little universe they've set up, of the script that they had.
If anyone's watched the old Batman television show, which has terrible dialogue,
I have many
but
times.
the delivery and
somehow
just the
breaks.
this is a campy they don't know what they want to be. All of the dialogue is pure camp.
Yes,
yeah,
true.
And it's fun for that. I mean, it's bad, but it's not. You don't cringe. You kind of
you just
laugh.
kind of roll with it. Yeah.
It's bad, but fun.
But somehow it all comes together because of that very fact. Yeah, so I think I'll give it a solid 1, even though if it wasn't all these elements combining, and if this wasn't a weird shitstorm of a movie that works somehow, I would have given any other movie I would be just shitting all over, giving a 0 to dialogue. But in this instance, in this case, I think it does work, and it somehow adds to it.
From the beginning, I was automatically give this 1 because it was just such a trope in and of itself. But the two things that knocked over that made it a solid 1 for Heather, when she hits the guy, Mr. I'm not hurt. First of all, that was an awesome line. The guy stumbles out of the car, definitely has a concussion. He's like, I'm all right. Or I'm not hurt. Falls down. And then Heather's because he hit her car. They got in a car accident. She was driving, and she's like, if he dies, I'll be a murderer.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, definitely getting a very strong 1.
So many obvious references to murder in the beginning of this movie before any murders happen.
It's really weird. She's telling stories about how she's being stalked by murderers and admits that it's all bullshit. It's very bizarre, but again, it can't be fun. It all works, and if not everyone, some people, and certainly McConaughey, is having a lot of fun, messing around with the stupid dialogue that they have in the script. So I'll give it a 1. Like I said,
it is terrible dialogue, but it is enjoyable for the most part.
Yeah,
just a lot of dumb sex jokes and stupid teen humor in the beginning, and then it gets to the family, and they're all just ridiculous, ridiculously over the top with their dialogue. So
for sure,
yeah, I'll give it a 1. I'm happy with that.
All right, so I'll give it a 1.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it.
Okay, and it's to me with style. And I've been thinking a lot about this one, and for a movie that was basically just thrown together, I actually was really kind of surprised at the production value. There was no gore in this, because I think they did kind of cut it down for release. The lighting.
Were you surprised by how bad it was?
What?
The production value?
No. Actually, I was going to say it's a much cleaner looking film than I would have suspected. You know what? But the thing that lost me was the fact that there was no horror in the fact. I mean, the movie what was there looked good, but what was there should have been. I think we've been saying all along, the human flesh on the wall, the skin on the wall should have been horrifying. And it was oh look, human
it's
skin.
just there.
How does he not know it's human skin when Barry's taking a leak?
I mean, if you go into a place, you see some leather on the walls, you don't just immediately equate it to human
leather
skin.
wallpaper.
I always do.
I as well,
But-
because of this film.
I gotta say, I've never been into a place and there's leather hanging on the wall, leather wallpaper. So I guess I can't really say
Not
for sure.
yet.
But what I would say is that I'll take what you were saying a little bit further, I guess, Chris, and say that there's no sense of tension at all in this movie, and in a horror movie, you need to have that somewhere.
Even if they're doing a parody, I would say.
The cinematography was
No, I'm not talking about
less than inspired.
Oh, I'm not talking about the cinematography. I'm just talking.
I'm branching off. But yeah, like I know what you mean. Like
Well, I just don't want you to think I was giving it that much credit. That's all.
Don't worry. I don't.
A lot of the action scenes are very weird and choppy. Like when Brad dies, I think he's supposed to get hit in the face by an axe, but it looks like he gets hit by the handle.
Yes.
In the scene, and I think that's where the problem lies in like how we're describing whether or not
It's
Barry
one of the problems.
is alive or not.
But the problem,
I think the idea
if you're
is supposed to be that
unsure
like
of what
his
happened,
face-
that's
yeah,
the problem.
Exactly. That's bad filmmaking.
And he totally just reminded me, this is totally off topic, where when Darla's driving and she stops right on the road and she picks up this stick and she doesn't even try. She's just like...
Yeah, it's really... those are two good examples. That's
That
what
was
I'm going to
very
say.
strange. Although that was kind of Lynchian. That one specific part,
Kind of, but
that was, but...
I don't know. Here's what I'll say, and building off what you guys just said. I was debating this one in my mind as well. But there were, like, noticeable weird things, like... It's not even weird, like... There was... two dummies, at least, like dolls that they cut through. Like, they were clearly the dummies. Like, and you're right, there was no gore. And there was also, like, cuts where Leatherface is, like, about to chop down the door, but it's already chopped down. Like,
yeah.
Like, it was this bad
the
editing.
cuts in the wall.
And the thing that got me was, there was, again, a scene that could have possibly had the potential of being tense, except it was when, Renee Zellweger is escaping from McConaughey, they're, like, on the ground, and she's, like using the remote, like, his little leg is going nuts.
Yeah.
And it shows, like, the most out-of-place song in the world to play, like, during that scene. If they played, like, a sort of, like, you know, menacing theme, like, maybe that could have made that scene tense-ridden, but it wasn't.
They might as well have played The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Yeah,
like,
or
right
something
on that
like it. Like, it was just really weird.
The choice of music in this is really strange because
Exactly.
it's all very
Throughout it.
So I guess they try to do the tense music. I didn't really.
I didn't hear any
recognize that.
tense music.
But they'll just put in songs that are very not obvious in the sense of like what they should play there. It just like they have someone put like a tape in a record and it'll just be out of place.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Nothing like the style. I mentioned when we started this that they're trying to throw like a different genres of film together. Where you have the horror, you have the camp, and you have the satire or the parody, and it's so slapdash. It's all ineffective.
Exactly.
So,
it defeats itself. It's really to me it was like obvious that they just needed a better editor or something. Like, and if I say that about a film, like it was just so I couldn't escape
They
the
needed
fact.
a lot of better things in this
Sure,
movie.
but I'm just saying, like, that was one aspect that I couldn't escape the fact that I noticed it, like, constantly throughout the film. So I don't think I can give it a 1. I'm going to have to give style a 0. Even though, again, it was entertaining, I guess, but I don't think it was well done. It was less than workmanlike, as I might normally say.
Yeah, it's going to be 0 for me, for sure.
Okay, and Steve-O, would you recommend this movie?
Strangely enough, I kind of would.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good movie. Don't go into it expecting to watch a good movie, but if you want to be entertained for an hour and a half, it's kind of entertaining. It's just a movie that you can laugh at and, like, pick apart how terrible it is, and that part's fun, but also there's, like, these funny lines of dialogue that come through, throughout a good amount of the movie, and there's just these, like, completely ridiculous, like, horror scenes. I would say, if you like horror movies, especially like campy horror movies, you'd probably like this movie. You'd probably enjoy it. There's no chance you'll think, well, there might be a chance you'll think it's a good movie, but you shouldn't. It's not a good movie.
That's the wrong opinion.
I'm here to tell you it's not a good movie.
Yeah.
But check it out anyway. So I'll give it a recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. It's good, bad, campy, fun. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's a good, bad movie. So bad it's kind of good. It's, as I said, it makes 0 sense pretty much whatsoever. However, I was very much entertained and didn't want to walk away, didn't want to stop watching it. I wanted to see what they would do next, even though it had was almost not quite a non sequitur, but just like a bunch of scenes jumbled together within the framework, like it wrapped in the package of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
It's also 90 minutes.
Yeah, so you can get through it real quickly, like it's not a big deal.
It goes quick, and that's definitely a good
yeah, it definitely
thing
didn't drag.
about this movie.
In fact, I thought it was shorter than 90 minutes because like it's sort of like not races through it, but certainly the pacing wasn't all that great, which maybe goes to style. But it's a fun movie to watch for Halloween, so I do recommend it.
I always go like, if I recommend it to you guys, I by definition have to recommend it. But oddly enough, because by virtue of the fact that I did, but oddly enough, I was thinking about one of the scenes and how they had the wall of keys, and I'm like sitting here going, they don't use it well, but a lot of the attention to details there, it's kind of like a phenomenon, this movie. So I actually do have to recommend it for all the reasons we said. Plus, you have to see all the ways the movie, in so many little ways, could have been so good.
Sure.
It's fascinating, the movie, in that way.
I'll say one more thing. It's not quite a recommendation, if I could mention it though. Did you guys notice that whenever McConaughey was using his leg, they played the sound every fucking time. They saw somebody cared enough to put that in the movie, to make sure that was consistent. But other shit was just fuck it, whatever. I guess. But just made me think of that. That's all. But yeah, it's a sit down with your friends, have a couple drinks, and enjoy this movie. Even though it's not a good movie, it is
not at all.
Is a fun Halloween movie to check out. So.
When I was in high school, I saw this with all of my friends who were out having a bad horror movie night. It's perfect for that. It's inoffensive. It perhaps will offend your sensibilities for what a good movie is, but it's it's not boring at all. It's you guys all said it already, so check it out. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Give it a view.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say?
Nah.
Well, thank you for joining us for MOTS-O-Ween. My name is.
Hold on. Let's give the scores.
Oh shit! That's right.
Well,
I got them here, so I'll take over for the scores. Scott and Chris both gave this a 5, and Ian and I were the miserly ones on this one. We gave it 4s.
Old Man Slaughter.
For a aggregate score of a 4.5.
Which is probably about right.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about right.
It's a mediocre, under-average movie, but you will be entertained by it, perhaps by its own merits, or perhaps by you laughing at it. So,
yeah, it's an interesting movie. Okay, we have the scores. So I'm going to say my name is Chris Morgan. Happy Halloween. I've been here with Steve and Mercy.
Good night.
Ian Manzer.
Happy Halloween.
And Scott Thurlow.
And I would definitely chainsaw me. Good night.
Good night.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.